of Dead Easy, the lost Tales from the Crypt film. As our cast today, we are honored to present to you, starring as the Harlequin, a pan-dimensional murder force and child's imaginary friend, Andrew Bowser.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
As Armand Duroux, old man slash knower of things slash patriarch of the family of chaos, Sam Britton.
Hey, happy to be here.
As Jake Bose, tech bro, Jody Webster.
Hello.
As Ruby Tyler, Laura Gemser style investigative journalist and psychic, Lala Argo.
Thanks for having me.
As Lloyd Harrison, tech adjunct and our protagonist, the legend himself, Alan Katz.
Well, that's thank you, everyone, but that is stretching the word legend to places it'll never get to. But thank you.
Certainly. As Danny Harrison, a child caught up in all manner of foolishness, Brandon Lane. Okay, we'll catch up with him. As Jimmy DeRue, Baron Samdi cosplayer and keeper of secrets, Jody Webster again.
Hello again.
As Emmeline DeRue, blind seer slash caster of the cards slash magic old lady slash day drinker slash antique store proprietress.
Yes.
Pretty hate machine.
The character fits me well.
As Perez, a doomed worker, Andrew Bowser.
Hey.
As Rogers, a mysterious mid-manager, also doomed, Brandon Lane.
Woo.
As Maggie, a tech person, Crazy Sexy Ghoul.
Hi.
As Ron, another tech person, Brandon Lane, once again. As Mrs. Sanchez, a housekeeper, Lala Argo. As Jane, a TV news segment producer, Crazy Sexy Ghoul.
Hi again.
Yes. As Sister, a nun, Pretty Hate Machine.
Kind of doesn't fit me, but we're going with it.
And rounding out our cast as Mother Superior slash Attila the Nun, an instrument of power and giver of information, Crazy Sexy Ghoul.
Woo, woo.
Me and all three of me are very happy to be here.
Excellent. I am Jason Sean. I'm going to be your narrator today. So if things fuck up, it's probably my fault. But we're just going to play wild and loose with it and have some fun. So if everybody is ready, get your drinks and refreshments and get ready for a journey into the darkest heart of the human spirit. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome you to Dead Easy.
Woo!
It's night. There's swamp as far as the eye can see. We drift past open water, past strands of cypress, their pointy knees poking through the black water, past huge oaks heavy with Spanish moss. We hear noises, ugly, dangerous, getting louder. We pass a half-submerged tombstone and another. Both have strange writing on them. We move onto a marshy thrust of dry land. We pass even more tombstones, landing finally at a small drilling rig. This is the thing doing the growling. Under a crummy, insufficient work light, two men drill the soft earth. One of them stops. That gets the attention of the other two men standing nearby. Perez wears a look of dread. Beside him, Rogers looks up from his maps and aerial photos.
What the fuck now? Drill! Ain't gonna be nighttime forever.
I've changed my mind. We shouldn't be drilling here.
Again with that. Fuck you. I got data that says there's a shitload of something underneath this fucking swamp. And if it's oil, I want it. So you tell those fucking mooks to get a fucking move on, or I ain't paying a fucking one of you.
That works. The shovels go down again and stop. One of the workmen gestures wildly at the other.
What the fuck now?
The bit's stuck. They don't want to go any further. They're scared.
You tell those fucks to drill or else.
Or else what?
Rogers reveals the gun at his waistband.
You got to understand, parts of this swamp, they're different.
Which one should I kill first?
He cocks the gun.
What's under here?
Boom. Rogers shoots Perez dead, points the gun at the others. They stare back. Rogers smirks and blows them both away as well. As the gunshots echo across the swamp, we cut to a rickety old shack on stilts built in the middle of the swamp. And as the gunshots echo in the distance, a weathered old man emerges from it, carrying a lantern. Armand Deroux's in his 70s, but there's something timeless about it. He heard the shots. He knows what they mean.
Oh, fuck.
He heads towards the beat-up little boat tied to his beat-up little dock. While back at the drilling site, Roger struggles to get the drill bit unstuck. Whatever it's hit, it's hard and deep. The bit splutters, whines. Suddenly a gush of black shoots up, bursts of spectral flame. And then, all of a sudden, the sound of tinkling bells. Teeth gritted, Rogers bears down on the drill. It spins, digs into something even harder, and catches. The whole drill unit shivers this time. Rogers steps back. The drill continues to shake. Whatever it's hit isn't oil. The bells get louder, and Rogers knows he's fucked.
It.
A fireball shoots from the wellhead and explodes, but there's something strange about the explosion. It has a shape to it, an elongated human shape with arms and legs, and just like that, it's gone. While back at Deroux's camp, Deroux has just cast off his lines. He sees the fireball rising above the trees in the distance. Bad just got worse. We dissolve to 2 months later, and we're in a computer game called Dead Easy. It features a villainous Harlequin character, a key component of the visuals, an old red pickup truck, and a swamp. And eventually, we ease out into the offices of the Beaux-Arts software company. An assortment of computer geeks sits around a funky boardroom table. At the far end is the boss, Jake. He's early 30s, brash, direct, and funky like the boardroom table. A few chairs to his right, Lloyd Harrison, 35, regards his coworkers dispiritedly. Lloyd's a good man with a complicated past. More complicated than he realizes.
You hated it.
I love the title. Dead Easy? I think it'll sell.
Justin, not with this game.
Graphics are beautiful. It's got potential.
Why don't you put a bullet in it right now? Come on.
It needs work. No big deal. I think the bad guy's the problem.
And you didn't like him?
He's not threatening enough.
Scares me. Scares the shit out of me.
Maybe if we went a little more traditional.
Fucking do what? Make him a demon?
Doesn't have to be a demon.
Make him a ghoul or something.
It's getting late. Why don't we let everyone go so you and I can continue the magic words. The rest of the table is heading for the door. Have a nice break, everybody. Don't go too crazy. It's not like you've never been to Mardi Gras before.
The room empties.
Okay, the game is a disaster.
I brought you here because you're one of the most imaginative programmers I've ever known. When you said you wanted to create a game, I said do it.
I should go back to programming, obviously.
No, You should be patient. You say this Harlequin character is frightening. Okay, why is he frightening?
He kills people?
So does smoking and drinking.
Mhm.
Maybe a better question is, why does he scare you? I want you to go home to your little boy. Take him out and show him the Mardi Gras he'll never forget.
I hate Mardi Gras. I've always hated Mardi Gras. I'll try.
Good. When you walk in here next week, I'll expect the answer to my question.
That night at Lloyd's house. It's a classical garden district home with lots of wrought iron. Lloyd pulls up in his Bronco, turns off the ignition, and sits for a moment. A couple of revelers pass by.
God, I fucking hate Mardi Gras.
Mhm.
A few minutes later, Lloyd stands at the front door with Mrs. Sanchez, his housekeeper.
Danny was very good boy today, Miss Harrison. He ate all of his dinner.
He hands her some cash.
That's a first. What was the occasion?
Mr. Harrison, I hope you don't mind me saying, but I think Danny feels lonely.
Hey, I spend as much time with him as I can, Mrs. Sanchez.
No, it's not that. He needs friends. When I told him that today, he said, but I have a new friend.
A new friend? Really? That's great.
Except he's not real. Good night, Mrs. Harrison.
She goes. As he closes the front door, Lloyd hesitates. He hears Danny's voice coming from inside.
Play with my computer? That's okay. I'll show you how. It's easy. I've got lots of games.
In the front room, Danny sits on the floor, surrounded by toys. He's a sweet little boy, extremely intelligent, and as Mrs. Sanchez said, lonely. He stares at nothing in particular as he talks.
It's okay if you don't know how to read. That's why you play the game. Where'd you go? Harley?
Hey, Dano.
Hey, Dad.
Mrs. Sanchez says you made a new friend today.
I did?
Isn't that who you were just talking to?
I'm not supposed to talk to you about him.
Okay. In that case, how was school?
Fine.
His eyes dart nervously. Lloyd studies him. Something about the whole exchange has struck a disturbing chord deep inside. Later that night, in Danny's bedroom, Lloyd tucks Danny into bed.
And then I thought he'd go someplace. I thought we'd go someplace for dinner. What do you think? Does that sound like a plan? Hey, maybe you and me, we should go out looking for chicks together, huh?
Okay.
Lloyd pulls the covers up to Danny's chin.
Danny, is your friend here right now?
Danny shakes his head.
Good. Then he won't know that we're talking about him. What's your friend's name?
Harley?
What does Harley look like?
I don't know. I haven't seen him. He said,
Danny stops.
It's okay, Danny. I used to have an imaginary friend too when I was a kid. He didn't want me telling my folks about him either. It was like we had a secret club, you know? Is that what you and Harley have?
Danny nods.
So, what did he say about you seeing him?
wasn't time yet. Not Dad.
See you in the morning.
Danny's already asleep. We dissolve to Danny's bedroom a little later. The boy sleeps peacefully. The tangle of shadows cast by the trees outside the window sway on Danny's bedroom wall.
Danny.
Still, Danny doesn't stir. On the wall, the shadows coalesce into one, a harlequin. The harlequin shadow eases across the wall, its phantom bells tinkling. His harlequin-shaped shadow hand reaches towards Danny's face and caresses his cheek.
Danny.
Danny's eyes flicker open. He sits up, frightened.
Dad?
Nope. It's Harley.
Harlequin's right hand suddenly peels off the wall, assuming a dark, transparent protoplasmic essence. Danny turns slowly. He watches the rest of the Harlequin's shadow emerge from the wall and transform into protoplasm.
You wanted to see me, didn't you?
Danny nods, but he's not as sure as he used to be. The Harlequin rolls his head to one side as if getting out the kinks. Being here feels good, better than where he was.
It's great to be here, Danny, but can we be honest? I'm pissed. You told your daddy about me, didn't you?
Danny gazes up at him fearfully.
Didn't you?
Danny nods. His fear is beginning to show, and that makes a strange thing happen. The Harlequin's protoplasmic essence shimmers and coalesces. He moans softly. This feels good.
Do it again, and I'll hurt him. Got it?
No.
Hold out your hand.
Danny hesitates. The Harlequin hisses at him.
Hold out your damned hand.
And Danny does. The Harlequin puts his spindly protoplasmic finger to Danny's palm. Where the Harlequin's finger touches him, the Harlequin's finger glows like it was burning into Danny's flesh. And when Danny screams, the Harlequin's protoplasmic form shimmers. Suddenly, the bedroom door bursts open and the light goes on.
Danny?
The Harlequin is gone. It's just Danny in bed, his palm outstretched.
Daddy.
I'm
Lloyd
here.
rushes-
Sorry.
Lloyd rushes to him, hugs him tightly.
I'm here. It was just a bad dream.
It wasn't Daddy. I saw him. A man. He was here.
Danny hesitates, slowly looks upward, and on the ceiling, the Harlequin shadow looms, his protoplasmic gaze fixed on Danny. We cut to the French Quarter, the day, a voodoo act for the tourists. The long-suffering but loyal Jimmy DeRue, in his 30s, performs as Baron Samedi for the tourists. His mom, Emmeline, calls him mid-performance. Jimmy breaks character and takes the call. And Emmeline, at home, hunches over a card table covered with tarot cards. She's cantankerous, earthy, and foul-mouthed. And when she tells Jimmy he's back, Jimmy sighs wearily.
Christ's sake, Mom, who's back?
Him, the Harlequin. The Fool card and the Harlequin card lie side by side.
I thought I hit all the booze.
Finally, we reveal Emmeline's most striking feature. Cataracts have turned her eyes a haunting milky white. Emmeline is blind. Her tarot cards are all in Braille.
I have not been drinking. I ain't been smoking anything either. It's in the cards. I was laying them out and he came up.
Fool can mean a lot of things.
I was asking about your brother. How's he doing? Mardi Gras coming up, you know.
Let's not be hasty, Mama.
I want your ass here, now. Ain't nobody safe if he's around.
A little later, at Emmeline's antique store, Jimmy has just finished hammering up a pentacross to the wall, a cross with a pentagram atop the vertical. In the center of it all sits Emmeline in a rocker, surrounded by pentacrosses.
They all up?
Mama, you could have made a mistake. And the cards?
Do not lie. Occasionally, we misinterpret them, but in my entire life, I have never misread their message to me.
Jimmy sighs wearily.
I heard that.
Okay. Let's say you have read the cards correctly. And let's say that thing has gone from there to here. Fine. What the hell are we supposed to do about it?
That's a question for him.
Who? The Harlequin?
You know who I mean.
Jimmy does, and he'd rather go ask the Harlequin.
You're going to have to do the asking. I don't want to see him.
I don't either, but there it is.
Jimmy looks at the tarot cards. The Fool card stares back. Day, the French Quarter. Lloyd and Danny visit the Mardi Gras, but Danny finds the whole thing intimidating. He keeps seeing Harlequins. Lloyd's not having much fun either. Meanwhile, in the swamp, Jimmy pilots a small boat with Emmeline aboard, and in the distance, we find Daru's shack. Inside the shack, Daru sits at a small wooden table, already weary with Emmeline. She wears a pentacross around her neck.
Where is he? Where's my boy? Did you think I wouldn't find out? How long's that thing been out?
Couple months. Bunch of wildcatters did it. I don't think they found what they were looking for.
A couple months? And you didn't do anything?
Not much to do, is there? Not yet.
You crazy old son of a bitch. Jesus, how can you live like this? Breaks my heart, that old house sitting empty.
Daru pounds his fist on the table.
Fine, you have it. You shouldn't have come.
I want to know where my boy is. He's in danger. Doesn't that matter to you?
There's more at stake than just him.
Don't do this. You can stop it. Please.
Daru pulls his hand away and roars at her.
Get out of here, Emmeline!
Meanwhile, in the French Quarter, the Mardi Gras continues. A parade marches down the street, and every bit of it terrifies Danny. A sudden gush of people separates Danny from Lloyd, and all Danny can see are legs and moving bodies.
Dad?
A wicked laugh behind him. Danny turns.
Hey, kid.
Hands grab Danny. It's Lloyd. He senses Danny's fear.
You okay?
Suddenly, Lloyd senses the Harlequin. He turns, sees that the Harlequin is just another drunk reveler, and the reveler Harlequin fades into the crowd.
He wasn't going to hurt you. He's just drunk is all.
Lloyd hoists Danny onto his shoulders. They head away, all the while someone's watching them. Not just a Harlequin, the Harlequin. Later that night at Lloyd's house, Danny is still too afraid to go to bed. Lloyd lets him watch TV. Lloyd soon falls asleep, leaving Danny by himself. We hear the bells.
Daddy?
Lloyd is dead to the world. More of the bells.
Your daddy's a heavy sleeper, ain't he?
Danny opens his mouth to scream, but the Harlequin's hand flies to his mouth, silencing him.
No screaming. Not yet. We got business to take care of first.
Danny regards the Harlequin fearfully. His protoplasm ripples. He's now 1/3 shadowy protoplasm, 2/3 human. Danny pulls free, lurches towards the hull. The Harlequin is on him in a flash. He pins Danny to the wall.
You got spunk, kid. Reminds me of me. That ain't a good thing. Do it again, and I'll fucking kill Daddy. I'll bury a beer bottle inside his skull.
Danny whispers fearfully, which makes the Harlequin coalesce even more. His horrible face takes shape, a skull with smatterings of flesh hanging from it. With one final burst of light, the Harlequin becomes totally, undeniably real. He pulls Danny to him, hisses into his ear.
I owe you one, kid. But you won't like the payback.
He withdraws a handful of white dust from a pocket, sucks in a breath, and as Danny screams, the Harlequin exhales, blowing the dust into Danny's face. Danny goes limp, though his scream continues. It comes from somewhere otherworldly and hangs in the air. And on the sofa, Lloyd snaps to. The Harlequin is gone.
Danny?
Lloyd rushes to him, picking up his lifeless form.
Danny?
Lloyd shakes him, but it's no use. We cut to the cemetery. Danny's funeral. It's understandably somber. Lloyd, looking thunderstruck, Mrs. Sanchez, a few others. There's also a film crew working another part of the cemetery. A cameraman, a sound man, producer, on-air talent. Her name's Ruby Tyler. She's in her early 20s. On camera, she's polished, beautiful, and contained. Otherwise, she's a force of nature. And right now, Ruby's on camera.
Maybe you've tried other psychic hotlines and found them lacking. Maybe you've never tried one and are just curious. Whichever. A call to the Psychic Ways hotline will change your life. Dial the number at the bottom of your screen, and I guarantee you. Lenny, hold the roll.
Ruby's producer, Jane, steps up and points off.
Let's relocate over there.
And do what? No, Lenny should get the funeral in the background. We're not bothering them. They won't even know we're here. Lenny, jump on it before they finished. Are we rolling?
Ruby stares into the camera as Danny's funeral plays silently in the upper left corner.
Maybe you've lost a loved one and want to communicate with them. At the Psychic Ways hotline, we can help you. Just dial the number on the bottom of your screen.
A cemetery worker seals Danny's crypt. Lloyd's friends try to comfort him, but there's not much anyone can do. Meanwhile, at Emmeline's antique store, Emmeline lays out tarot cards and a cross. She lays a card at the intersection and feels the card's braille imprint.
That doesn't make sense.
Of course it doesn't, Mama. It's a tarot deck, not a missing persons bureau. Old man told us to stay out of it. I think that's a good idea.
Your father wouldn't know a good idea if it sat on him.
Emmeline takes up the cards and starts again.
You're not finding Michael that way.
Mardi Gras in 2 days. If we don't find your brother, something terrible's going to happen. And he's not who I'm looking for. If I could just figure out how to phrase the question.
Mama, we don't want to mess with the Harlequin.
I know that. But if we can find him before he goes after your brother, as she lays out. Oops.
It's
misplaced text.
as she lays out more cards, Jimmy heads for the door. He now wears a pentacross around his neck too.
I'll be at Smitty's. If I see any monsters, I'll come right home.
Emmeline lays down another card.
Nah, you ain't going to Smitty's.
The card she had just laid down is the Hanged Man. Cut to the Hanged Man bar that night. The Harlequin is there. He fits right in. A woman named Meg, dressed as the Queen of Pentacles, buys him a beer. Meanwhile, in a small video editing suite, Ruby and her crew are cutting her ad. But Ruby's eye keeps getting drawn back to Danny's funeral. Back at the Hanged Man bar, the Harlequin and Meg head for the ladies' room to have sex, just as Jimmy walks in the front door. In the bathroom, the Harlequin kills Meg and sucks out her soul. During the struggle, she wounds his face. Underneath the Harlequin mask, you see, he's horrifying. Bone, sinew, and gooey eye sockets. The Harlequin takes Meg's face as his own. Then he leaves the bathroom and literally bumps into Jimmy DeRue, who's searching for the Harlequin that night, then heads out the front door. Later that night at Lloyd's house, Ruby arrives in a taxi. She rings the front doorbell and Lloyd answers.
Are you Lloyd Harrison?
Why?
Can I come in?
She doesn't wait for an answer. She pushes past him, already registering things in her head.
Was someone else here?
Who the fuck are you?
No, not a person.
That's enough.
Lloyd grabs her, pulls her towards the door.
Mr. Harrison, you can throw me out of your house, but I'm not going away. I know that your little boy's alive.
I'm calling the police.
Do it. If I'm wrong, the cops lock me up and throw away the key. But if I'm right, I can bring Danny back.
Cemetery, night. Grunting draws us toward Ruby and Lloyd. Ruby's been working the crowbar with no success. They're trying to unseal Danny's crypt.
Jesus, what did they seal this with? Cement?
As a matter of fact,
She hands the crowbar to Lloyd.
Your turn.
my son is dead. I took him myself to the goddamned hospital. They worked on him for an hour before giving up. He's dead.
And doctors and hospitals never make mistakes? All I know is the energy coming from this tomb is Batala, living energy. Your little boy's lying in there right now, scared out of his mind, and he's dying. But this time for real, can you really walk away from that?
Though unconvinced, Lloyd takes the crowbar, inserts it, and puts his weight to it. The lid gives. Lloyd opens the coffin, and to his and Ruby's horror, it is empty. At the antique store, Jimmy paces by the card table. Behind him, Emmeline feels at the cards. Something is not right.
No point taking it personal, Mama.
Ain't what I'm doing.
In a way, the cards were right. Half the folks in the bar were dressed like harlequins.
Except I wasn't asking about any of them. I was asking about him.
She grabs the cards, shuffles, lays them out again.
Mama.
She turns over the top card. It's the Queen of Pentagrams.
What the hell does that mean?
Meanwhile, at Lloyd's house, Ruby is back to circling the living room, hunting for clues about Danny. Lloyd is back to being cynical. He's drinking too.
We should just call the police.
And if you want, I doubt they'll be able to help you.
Are my walls telling you that?
He swigs
If
from the
you-
bottle.
If you were in the cemetery before, how come you didn't realize something was wrong then?
I wasn't looking for it. I'm not omniscient. The power has to be turned on. It's like words in a book. You can't read the words unless the book is open. The book wasn't open until I watched the tape.
You got these feelings from watching a tape?
She stops where Danny died.
Tape's electronic. It stores energy, sometimes in the form of sounds or pictures or brainwave activity. That's what a psychic responds to, the energy. Yes, definitely. So there's another presence in the room, Mr. Harrison. Can I call you Lloyd? How long have you owned this house?
7 years.
Have you ever had any intimidations that it was haunted or no, that's not what this is. This feels more like a poltergeist or something that's darker. Where's Danny's room?
Moments later, they're in Danny's room. Lloyd watches Ruby from the door. She slowly circles.
Is there anything wrong with Danny these last few days? Was he behaving differently in any way?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
She picks up a toy, feels its surface, puts it down.
He did start talking to an imaginary friend.
What kind of an imaginary friend?
Danny's friend didn't want Danny talking about him. Kids are like that. When I was his age, I had one too.
Ruby sits on Danny's bed. The energy leaping from it is palpable. Danny's plaintive, "Daddy!" echoes in Ruby's ears. She puts a hand to Danny's pillow.
Well, was Danny afraid of his imaginary friend?
Well, the night he died, he didn't want to go to bed. He was afraid of something. He'd had a bad dream.
Do you know what it was about?
You think he was dreaming about his imaginary friend?
Were you ever afraid of his imaginary friend?
I don't remember much of anything before I was 5. Everything kind of jump starts in my head at the orphanage where I grew up.
Do you remember your parents?
I don't remember much of anything.
Except that you and Danny both had imaginary friends.
Are you suggesting there's a connection between my imaginary friend and Danny's?
There's a very unusual energy emanating from you. I've never felt anything like it. I don't know what it is, but it's the same energy that I'm feeling from Danny.
We cut to the antique store in the morning. Emmeline lies in bed looking depressed. Jimmy enters carrying a tray with coffee and breakfast.
Ugh,
Don't go there.
I'm not hungry.
Maybe not this second, you aren't.
He stirs sugar into Emmeline's coffee, hands the cup toward her. She takes it. She's listening.
After everything went down, the old man took Michael into the city and got rid of him, right? Now, old man's a hard ass, but I doubt he just left Michael on a street corner. The easiest thing to do would have been to take him to an orphanage, one-stop shopping. It's so him. Therefore, if I can find the orphanage, I might could find Michael.
You really think so?
Worth a shot.
That's a good idea, Jimmy. A very good idea. So, what'd you make for breakfast?
We cut to an old metal sign, rusty with age. It reads St. Vincent's Asylum for Underprivileged Orphan Boys. The sign sits atop a decrepit Victorian-era red brick building. Even in its glory days, this place was creepy. Inside, the orphanage is even creepier. Lloyd and Ruby stand at the decrepit service counter.
Oh, I remember it. The Mother Superior was the worst. We used to call her Attila the Nun.
A sister approaches.
I wish I could help you, Mr. Duro, but I'm afraid we don't have any record of Michael Duro being here at the time you're asking about. In the past 30 years, we've looked after literally thousands of boys.
I understand, sister. Could I speak to the director myself?
I'm afraid she's in a meeting.
Right on cue, the director's office door opens. Jimmy DeRue emerges, and as he passes the service desk, Lloyd politely steps out of his way.
Thank you.
Bud quoi?
Moments later, in the director's office, the Mother Superior looks up from her desk. She's a hideous spider of a woman, squat and terrifying, and Lloyd can't help the words that gush.
Attila the Nun is still here.
Well, I'll be Lloyd Harrison. You made something of yourself. Is this Mrs. Harrison?
No, we're friends.
If you say so. Wait a minute. You're on TV, aren't you? You're Ruby Tyler. We watch you all the time here.
That's nice to hear.
Freaks out a few of the sisters, but it's amazing how right you are. And you. I expect one to know who you are.
I'm not the first to ask, am I?
I can't help you. The man who brought you here refused to tell us anything.
That man, who was he? Who was he?
I don't know. He wouldn't say.
The sister hands the Mother Superior an old manila envelope.
He left this for you. He said we were to give it to you if you were ever to come asking about your past. He wanted you to know that you came from a good family who loved you.
She hands Lloyd the envelope. Inside is an old photo, black and white, taken in front of a house out on the water. A young Armand Duru, a young Emmeline, a very young Lloyd, and an even younger Jimmy. Off to one side is a beat-up old pickup truck. We don't know what color it is, but the make is exactly the same as the truck in the video game.
Is that you?
I think so.
Lloyd examines the truck in the photo.
The license plate starts with a J.
St. Tammany Parish. That's where I'm from.
St. Tammany's, right.
We cut to the swamp. It's the next day. A small motorboat slowly chugs along. Lloyd steers. Ruby sits beside him, holding the Daru family photo.
Getting any energy from it?
Doesn't work like that. Photos are created by light, not energy.
Isn't light energy?
Different kind. I've met psychics who say they can read it from photos, but they're full of shit.
She points to the man in the photo.
Is that the man who took you to the orphanage?
Could have been.
Suddenly, Lloyd remembers the scene vividly. He's a 5-year-old boy begging his dad not to leave him. He clings to his father, terrified. Drew kneels and whispers in his ear.
Thought you said you was going to be brave for me. We'll see each other again someday, I promise. You gotta forget about me for now. Here? But just for now.
Wisps of energy rise from Drew's fingertips, and the wisps disappear inside Lloyd's head. Drew stands and walks away, and young Lloyd watches his father go. He's forgotten. We're now back in the present, floating in the swamp.
My father left me at the orphanage, but it wasn't because my parents were dead.
Then why did he leave you?
Lloyd looks off as if the swamp held the answer. As the boat drifts on, we pan off and find Drew's camp nearby. So close, yet so far. And later that afternoon, Lloyd's 4x4 cruises through the middle of nowhere, and inside, Ruby gazes at a map.
Either this road isn't on the map or we should have turned left miles ago.
How do we get back to where we came in? Can't the energy tell you that?
I'm a psychic, not a compass.
She turns the map sideways, turns it upside down, and then gives up and throws it back into the back. Meanwhile, at the antique store, Emmeline has just had a revelation.
He's changing identities. That's what the cards were saying. I told you they never lie.
You also said you never misread them.
I didn't misread them. I just didn't read them how I was supposed to. Never mind that. He was there last night, Jimmy. He was in that goddamn bar. He just didn't look how you expected.
Emmeline hurriedly lays out her stacks while Jimmy looks down at his paper. The lurid headline reads, "Vicious Murder in Quarter." Below it, a photo of the Hanged Man bar, and below that, a driver's license photo of Meg. Jimmy vaguely remembers her face from the night before.
I bet he killed her. Some poor woman, dressed like that queen of pentagrams, took her soul and God knows what else. How come it's not in the papers?
She turns over the top card. Justice.
He's still in the quarter. Down by the courthouse, maybe.
Jimmy stares at Meg's photo in the paper.
Does he still look like her?
Emmeline turns over another card.
For now.
Meanwhile, we're on a road along the swamp. It's heading towards dusk, and Lloyd's car stops at a fork. Lloyd and Ruby, both annoyed, get out.
We've been driving around this goddamn swamp for over an hour.
Can we please just turn around and go back in the direction we came from?
Which way is that? We know the main road isn't that way. We've been there. Same goes for the other direction.
We should have turned left when I said turn left.
We'd be just as lost as we are now. Only we'd be lost somewhere else.
He hesitates. A red pickup truck speeds at them, nearly hits Lloyd. And Lloyd recognizes the truck. It is his father's. Lloyd and Ruby jump back into Lloyd's car and follow it to a clearing where they find an old lean-to. An old tarp covers the entrance. Inside the lean-to, they find a rusted old red pickup truck. It's on blocks, wheelless, engineless too. It's been here a very long time.
I don't understand.
Astral projection. My whole career, I've never seen one.
It was a what now?
It was all in our minds, Lloyd. We both saw it. Do you know what that means?
He doesn't answer, but he gazes at something behind Ruby, way behind her. They have found the house from the photo. That night in the French Quarter, Jimmy searches for the Harlequin. He's got Meg's photo in one hand, his cell phone in the other, Emmeline on the other end.
How are we doing? Is he moving around any? Is he changing?
At the antique store, Emmeline turns over a tarot card.
Not yet.
Meanwhile, at the old house in the swamp, Lloyd and Ruby approach the house.
I'm getting all kinds of crazy energy from this place, Lloyd. I'm scared.
I just want to look in the door.
Could we wait and do this in the morning when it's light?
The front door creaks as Lloyd opens it. As Lloyd explores the house of his childhood, the memories come flooding back and they are not happy. Something in the house scared him then, and it scares him even more now. In his old bedroom, Lloyd finds on the wall the silhouette of a harlequin. He remembers himself as a child hiding in the bedroom closet while the harlequin stalked him. A pentacross still hangs there on the closet wall. That a pentacross protected Lloyd tells Ruby that Lloyd is a shaman or comes from a line of them. But Ruby and Lloyd aren't alone in the house. An alcohol-crazed swamp rat's been squatting there. He nearly kills Ruby and Lloyd, but when the swamp rat hears who Lloyd is, he softens. He knew the whole Giroux family, he says. They were like kin, and he knows where Lloyd might find them today, in the French Quarter. Jimmy continues his hunt for the harlequin while Emmeline works the tarot cards. The harlequin, still wearing Meg's face, visits a sex arcade. There, he murders another young woman and sucks her soul from her body. While on the street nearby, Jimmy continues searching with Emmeline guiding him via cell phone.
Jimmy, he just changed.
All hail. Into what?
In the antique store, Emmeline turns over a card. It's
The world.
What's that mean? What does he look like?
I don't know.
That doesn't help. Is he a male or female world?
The cards don't say.
Of course they don't. Cards aren't really all that helpful now, are they?
Quit blaming the cards. We will always be the problem. And the harlequin's still gonna be who he is. When you see him, look into his eyes. You'll know.
Right. Except then I'll have to get close enough to do it.
Jimmy turns, sees a harlequin emerge from the alley and head down the street.
Jimmy,
Hold on a second, Mama.
Jimmy follows the harlequin's bloody footprints to an industrial part of town, an old 3-story sugar mill. Water drips from the ceiling. Catwalks run chaotically this way and that, and at the center of it all is a huge industrial cane crusher. It ends badly for Jimmy. Though he plunges a hand scythe into the harlequin's chest, the harlequin is unaffected. He throws Jimmy into the crusher, stands over him, and suddenly recognizes his kin.
You're Armin's boy, aren't you? The other one. Well, what a surprise.
He pulls the hand scythe from his chest.
You're damn lucky I don't have any of my magic right now. Christ, I do all kinds of terrible things to you.
Please. I'm your grandson.
Like that's my fault?
The harlequin plunges the scythe into Jimmy, killing him. Smash cut to Emmeline's antique store a little later that night. Emmeline holds the phone to her ear. Her calls will not go through. She turns, hearing keys in the lock. The front door opens. The harlequin enters wearing Jimmy's face, except Emmeline can't see that it's the harlequin.
Mama, I'm home.
Jimmy, where the hell you been? I keep calling and calling.
The harlequin hesitates at the door. He sees the pentacrosses on the walls. He can't hurt her inside, so he shifts to plan B.
Did you find him, Jimmy? What's wrong?
I'm hurt, Mama. Hurt bad.
He draws Emmeline outside, and when she follows, he grabs her.
Want to know what I did to your boy? I cut out his heart and ate it. But don't worry. I'm letting you off easy, because you ain't blood.
Suddenly, headlights. Lloyd's car screeches to a halt. Lloyd and Ruby launch from the car as the harlequin slits Emmeline's throat. He goes after Lloyd next, catches him, but when he goes to stab Lloyd with his spindly finger, something in Lloyd's pocket stops it. A pentacross. Momentarily beaten, the harlequin runs. Lloyd rushes to Emmeline. She looks into his eyes, calls him by his real name.
Michael.
You gotta hold on, Mama.
She can't.
Tomorrow night, only you can stop him.
We dissolve to Lloyd's office at Beau's Art. It's dawn. Lloyd slumps in his chair, weary and sad. Ruby slumps in the chair nearby. She gazes at all the Harlequin artwork.
Do you think the Harlequin wanted to take over your body?
By exchanging my soul for his. That's probably what he's doing with Danny, finishing what he started.
It's amazing how strong fear is. You remembered the Harlequin in spite of your father clouding you.
Jake enters. He's hungover.
This better be good.
Sorry to do this to you, but it's important. Meet Ruby. My boy is alive. Something is going to sacrifice him tonight out in the swamp.
This town just keeps getting crazier. Have you called the police?
There's nothing they can do, and we haven't got time. I need to talk to the snake.
The snake? Oh, Jesus.
My kid's life is at stake. All you have to do is plug us into the network and feed the signal into the computer here. We're looking for a kind of energy which the computer will sort from the rest of the shit and cell phone to my notebook out on the swamp.
What are you going to do with it out there?
Wire it to a set of electrodes and feed it to her. She's a psychic. The whole thing will work like a huge tracking device, if it works. I've got this right, don't I?
You've got it right.
Even if I say yes, it could still take days to break into into those other computers.
I don't have days.
That's not even the hard part. You got a program to do all this?
I will.
We cut to a little later. Lloyd pounds away at the keyboard. Working up a sweat, he removes his sweatshirt. Doesn't see his pentacross fall to the ground. Since Lloyd's working the keyboard, Jake runs out to pick up food, but when he returns a little later without the food, he acts strangely. And in the kitchen, we understand why. The Harlequin has killed Jake to get into the house as Jake. He wounds Ruby. He turns on Lloyd, and the Harlequin is way stronger. Though Lloyd has lost his pentacross, there's a little latent magic in him, he learns, and that magic saves him from the Harlequin. When Daru arrives unexpectedly, the Harlequin flees, and Lloyd realizes who Armand Daru is, his dad.
Told you we'd see each other again.
As the two men embrace, we cut to later. Ruby sits on a couch in the front room, holding a cold compress to the side of her head. Everything hurts.
I should have known it was him. Your boss must have thick skin to cover that kind of energy.
And I always thought his skin was so thin. How'd you know he would come here?
We go back a ways, me and him.
More to the point, why'd you let him get away?
Because it isn't time yet. He has to pick up with your son exactly where he left off with you. He can't do that for another couple of hours yet.
Pick up with? Are you crazy?
I didn't say we'd let him finish.
He's your father, isn't he? The Harlequin.
It's complicated. He's not my father exactly, more like my father's soul.
That's why all three energies are the same. All four. You're all shamans.
Yeah, we got shaman blood. But only one of us can be shaman. The eldest son of the eldest son. That day will come when the magic will be yours. But you better be careful with it. It's powerful shit. Dangerous too. It can make a good man do terrible things. That's what happened to my father. That's why he had to die.
Who killed him?
Second hardest thing I ever did. First was saying goodbye to you. That night, I condemned his soul to hell.
That's what's under the swamp, right? That's what's there, isn't it?
Of a kind. We're its guardians, but we failed. Not only did a soul escape, one of our own, he played on your innocence. Your fear made him real. And on this night, 30 years ago, he tried to come back. As a young shaman with a heart made of black magic.
We cut to the swamp. It is night. The fog hangs heavy. Ruby is at the wheel. Lloyd and Daru sit amidships. and a light on the bow illuminates their way through the soup.
You're doing fine. Just keep on ahead. I misplayed this round. Put my money on the clock instead of finishing them. Sent you away and waited for your boy to get past the danger zone. We almost made it, too. Once the process begins, you'll take your boy and get back on that boat.
What are you going to do?
I'm putting him back where he came from. That's the only place that I can kill him.
But what's going to happen to you?
Don't you worry. We'll see each other again.
A few moments later, Lloyd and Daru move slowly on foot through the thick vegetation. Lloyd glances at his watch. It's 20 to midnight.
Before midnight, right?
Before midnight.
They head toward the flickering lights ahead. As they pass a headstone, two dead things shoot from the grave. One goes for Lloyd, the other grabs Daru. Lloyd tumbles, dead thing on top of him. White light shoots from Daru's fingertips. It blows off the right arm of the dead thing attacking him, and then Daru blows off its head. Meanwhile, we discover a hole in the ground surrounded by black candles. The wreck of an oil drill rig rises from one side. Danny lies in the hole, bound and gagged and struggling, and the Harlequin stands over him. He's back in his Harlequin costume. Now his face is down to bone mostly. Even that's rotten. The Harlequin turns toward Danny. He holds up a knife. Meanwhile, Daru uses his pentacross to fry one of the dead things. He turns to help Lloyd, but we're back to the Harlequin, and he's just cut Danny's heel. Danny's blood puddles at the bottom of the hole. It's sacrificing time, but just as the Harlequin goes to kill Danny, Daru stops him. He and the Harlequin battle while Lloyd rescues Danny. We whip back to Daru and the Harlequin struggling for the knife. Then back to Lloyd. He's got Danny untied. They're about to run, but Lloyd can't just go. He's got to be sure the Harlequin is gone. The Harlequin and Daru continue to fight. And while Daru gains the advantage, he can't keep it. The Harlequin mortally wounds him and disappears into the fog. Lloyd tries to confront his father.
Can't seem to get this right. It's up to you now.
What should I do? How do I kill him?
You'll know. Comes with the territory.
He smiles enigmatically and dies. Suddenly, Lloyd's hands glow with magical power. He is now the shaman. Moments later, Lloyd searches the fog for Danny. He hears the boy's voice, except it's not Danny drawing Lloyd into the fog. It is the Harlequin. Ruby, meanwhile, has found Danny. She covers his mouth to keep him quiet, but then the Harlequin finds them. The Harlequin shoves Ruby aside and tries to finish with Danny. He grabs the knife he used to kill Daru and pushes Danny into the hole. He rears back with it, sees Lloyd at the edge of the clearing.
Too late this time.
But when the Harlequin goes to plunge the knife home, his arm crumbles. The bone disintegrates into dust. Pieces of his costume flake off as Lloyd approaches and holds up his watch.
You're too late. It's after midnight. Game over. Come on, Danny.
Danny tries to climb from the hole, but the Harlequin holds on to him. Another piece of the Harlequin dangles, then drops off.
You think you won? I may suffer eternal damnation, but I won't be alone.
The Harlequin pushes his remaining hand into Danny's back and pulls out his soul. Danny crumples to the ground, but his voice emanates from the glowing thing in the Harlequin's hand.
Daddy!
Gotta go.
He dives for the hole, disappears into it even. Lloyd lunges after him, but he's too late. Lloyd knows what he has to do. He leaps into the hole after them. He plunges downward, reaching the other side. He crashes to the ground. Fog swirls just as thickly down here, except it's darker and danker. The Harlequin's voice seems to come from everywhere.
Not exactly Club Med, is it? The weather sucks, the plumbing leaks, and wait till you see what's making that smell.
A specter suddenly flashes in front of Lloyd. It becomes the Harlequin. Lloyd swats at it, but it vanishes.
Hey, try your magic. Go on. See what happens.
Lloyd holds up his hand. It glows for a moment, then sputters out.
Now ain't that a bitch? Hey, kid, anything to say to your daddy?
Daddy, help me. He's hurting me, Daddy. He's hurting me.
You want him? You're gonna have to find him. And then you're gonna have to take him.
Ahead of Lloyd, the fog clears, revealing a rickety old bridge over a river. Lloyd starts across it, then stops midway, looking down at the water. Black, rolling liquid, belching flame. The fire illuminates the bodies floating in its current.
Like the view? I call this the bridge over troubled waters.
To Lloyd's surprise, is right behind him. His motley hat is now alive. The three tassels writhe like serpents. Holding Danny's glowing soul in his remaining hand, the Harlequin swats Lloyd into the side of the bridge.
I'm going to suggest they rename this part of hell Daru, considering how many of us Darus there's going to be here.
He slips Danny's soul into his pocket, turns to finish Lloyd. Lloyd tries to crawl away, but the Harlequin kicks him towards the edge.
I'm king of this hill, boy. And the king says, you're going to die.
The face on one of the Harlequin's serpent tassels opens its jaws.
You got the family eyes, son. I want him back.
The tassel lunges for Lloyd's face. Lloyd dodges it, grabs for the Harlequin's hat.
Hey, don't fuck with the hat.
The Harlequin leans forward. The snake tassel coils pre-strike.
Come here, boy. Give your old great-granddaddy a kiss.
The tassel lunges and takes off a piece of Lloyd's face, but just misses his eyes. As Lloyd tries to squirm away, the flames lick at him from below, and something inside Lloyd's head clicks. He knows what to do.
Sure thing, Grandpa. No tongues.
Lloyd pulls the Harlequin's face to his own. The Harlequin resists.
What are you doing?
Getting to know my family better, soul to soul.
Their faces merge. A surge of white light shoots through Lloyd's bodies. It's a surge of darkness coming from the Harlequin. The light and dark surges collide. The white surge prevails, and white light pours into the Harlequin as Lloyd plucks Danny's soul from the Harlequin's pocket and scrambles away. The Harlequin convulses to the beat of the white light. His remaining body pieces fly this way and that. His serpentine tassels spark and pop, and the Harlequin's head twists to one side. And as it separates from his body,
That's it. You're out of the will.
he pitches from the bridge and explodes. And as the smoke clears, Lloyd finds himself standing at the bottom of the hole where the Harlequin had dug. And as he climbs from the hole, Ruby rushes to help him. Lloyd looks into his pocket and retrieves Danny's soul. As if recognizing home, Danny's soul lunges for Danny's body and vanishes inside of him. The boy coughs and splutters back to life. Lloyd hugs him. Ruby kneels beside them, one arm around Lloyd, the other around Danny. We dissolve to the boat landing just a little later. Ruby, Lloyd, and Danny head for Lloyd's car. Running just ahead, Ruby slides behind the wheel and starts the car. And Lloyd and Danny step into the glow of the headlights.
Are we safe now?
We're safe.
They find their shadows. Lloyd's shadow lengthens as he walks on, but there's something weird about Danny's shadow. Where a little boy's head should be is the shadow of a tasseled Harlequin's hat. And as Danny's shadow moves along, we hear, neither Lloyd nor Ruby can hear it. We fade out. The end.
Well done, everybody. Well
That's very well done. In fact, we have to get the theater empty because the line around the block is for the next showing.
I'm
I think what you can sense from that reading, firstly, it was just remarkable. You guys all did a great job. What was interesting for me to hear after all these years, yet again, was that if you think about Demon Knight and you think about Bordello and you think about this script, you can see the difference. And what Alan and I were going for in wanting to make this as the second Tales movie. Because after Demon Knight, this was much more about relationship and family. And yet it felt very Tales-ish, and it felt like it was right in the strike zone of what Tales from the Crypt movie could tell.
It does, yeah. I mean, it's ghoulish with great emotional resonance.
Right.
And Bordello of Blood had no emotional resonance whatsoever.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And Demon Knight didn't really have a lot of that either. So we really wanted to add that, and we really thought that with the Harlequin, you know, we could maybe make that into another franchise.
There's so much. I want to thank everyone involved with this, because there's nothing quite like one of Chattanooga Film Festival's script reads, and it's always so much fun. But like the fact that we had Alan and Gil involved with this, like that's such a tremendous honor. Like respect to you guys both for like participating with the festival and bringing your podcast and doing the commentary, but also like letting us do this. Like, fuck, that's such an honor. It really means a lot.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for saying that, but it was really our pleasure. I mean, we really enjoyed our time down in Chattanooga, even though the humidity is a killer. But
yeah, it's fucking awful.
That's the truth.
You guys were great. Yeah. And the planes were delayed coming home. But other than that, we really had a good time with you guys and really enjoyed our time in Chattanooga.
And really and truly, we are nothing without you. And it's really, we are all in this together. It's just a fact of life. And thank you so much.
Indeed. Well, big ups to all of our cast and participants, and big ups to everybody watching this all around the world right now. Thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being part of the Chattanooga Film Festival. Support cinema, be good to each other. And I think with that, we can call it an evening. Drink them if you got them or whatever. And thank you for being part of this. There's still several days. There's still several days worth of stuff virtually to participate in for the CFF. And there's lots of amazing stuff to see. And if you haven't watched Alan and Gil's commentary, unabashed commentary for Bordello of Blood, it truly is the best way to experience that film.
Yeah, don't watch it straight. That won't work for you.
And don't forget to tune into our podcast, How Not to Make a Movie.
Yes.
How Not to Make a Movie podcast. Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great evening. Thank you for being part of it. And we hope to see you with more stuff with the Chattanooga Film Festival, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Cheers, everyone.
Guys.